My name is Julie Cook, and the organisation I work for is Alwoodley Extended Services, and my title is Extended Services Leader. The project is called the Alwoodley Community Orchestra, and we also have a choir. And the project came about really because we were looking at how we could do intergenerational work. We'd done a project with some older people which we'd called Golden Friends, and because of the success of that we started looking at other ways in which we could work with older people in a way that would be sort of uplifting and help people's sort of emotional health and well-being and so on. And music just came as an idea really. One of the things that came out through them and through a local voluntary organisation called Morality Elderly Care was that some older people felt threatened by particularly gangs of young people that may be on street corners or at the shops and so on. And even though there was possibly no risk, they did feel threatened, and it was thought that this project might help to make a better understanding of each other's perspectives. And music seemed to be the kind of idea that we wanted to explore, and that's how we came up with the idea of the orchestra. But I think that the children have really enjoyed and learned from having older people at the orchestra, and I think it's been probably more fun because of the angle really. And we're still very much in our infancy, and we hope to build and grow, and getting older people to come to it is obviously a challenge.
My name is Bernard Collier, and I'm 90 years of age, and I'll be 91 in October. At the age of 7 I started on the violin, and at age 13 I graduated to a clarinet, and from the clarinet during the war I learnt to play the saxophone family, alto saxophone, tenor and baritone saxophone, and did a bit of percussion work as well whilst we were in Palestine. And then when the Italians came to the war, of course all the music went because we were sort of fighting in Libya, where there's a lot of problems today. In the prisoner of war camp in Italy, we were sort of inundated, you might say, with sackfuls of Italian money, which we call monopoly money, because it didn't look like ordinary money, and we couldn't buy anything with it. Just each had sackfuls of this, so we thought we'd call the Italians bluff by saying, could we buy some musical instruments with this money? Much to our surprise, they said yes. We got our first musical instruments through the International Red Cross in Geneva, an old saxophone, a couple of clarinets, a trumpet, that sort of thing. And we formed a sort of nucleus of a band. And we put on shows once a month, sort of musical shows, one or two good singers as well. And in between they did one or two little comedy turns and so on. This project I think is very, very good. There's a lot publicised about young people doing this and that older people don't like it and that sort of thing. But when you get mixing with young people, you'll find a lot of them are much better than being rubbish or whatever older people like to call them, And by this sort of involvement, this proves that point, I think.
My name's Emma. I'm 10 years old. My name is Manisha. I'm 10 years old. I play the violin. I play the clarinet. What I really like about the orchestra is where you can play different songs with different ranges of ages. I like about the orchestra is that you can play all together. The oldest person in orchestra is Bernard, and he's over 90.
What have you learned from the older people that are in the orchestra?
That it's not just the younger people who can learn how to play good instruments and play fast songs and stuff.
And what would you say to other young people about older people?
That they're just as good as younger children because they've been young as well.
And has this project changed how you feel about older people?
Yeah, because I used to think that they were just old people, and because you normally play around with and play instruments with younger children like you, but playing with older people has made it more exciting.
Thanks to an Awards for All grant of £9,575, the Alwoodley Extended Services Cluster has been able to set up both an orchestra and a choir for all the age 7 and above to encourage generations to come together through music. For more information about Awards for All, visit www.awardsforall.org.uk.